Welcome to Steve Allen's Comedy Room, where funny people gather just for laughs. Visiting us today, Mr. Television, Milton Berle. Gifted young comedy star, Billy Crystal. The multi-talented writer, director, actor, Reiner. And young piano comedy artist, Gonyea. The Gibbs Sextet. And your host, Steve Allen.
Hi, folks. Nice to see you here again in the old comedy room. As you may know, and perhaps you don't if you've never seen one of our shows before, it's not really a talk show in the traditional sense, but it is in the sense that I have an announcer sidekick. And we have him come in every so often at the beginning of the show, frankly, just so I can kick him in the side and get a cheap laugh by doing that. Welcome, a distinguished British performer of the world of comedy, Mr. Joe Baker. Here he is. Ready for a sidekick, Frank? All right, just for old time's sake, Joe, I will. Oh! Good, there we go. What good is it to have a sidekick if you can't kick him in the side? That's what I always say. What's new, Joe? What are you doing
I've got a terrible headache. I don't know, not much. What are you doing?
Just a few little shows called Comedy Room. Other than that...
Afterwards?
Afterwards, well, we'll look in the yellow pages and find something else.
Hope so.
Yeah. Seriously, what's up?
Well, I haven't got a job.
You don't have one?
No, I think I'll have to go back to what I used to do before I was in this.
And what did you used to do?
I was an inventor.
Really? I never knew that about you.
Yes, first one to discover the truth serum.
Truth? You say you invented that?
Yeah.
I'm sorry to disappoint you, but in this country, at least, we have had truth serum for 40 years that I know of. It's only in pentothal.
Yeah, that, with the needle and all that.
No.
This is taken orally, like that. Sip it, you automatically tell the truth.
That's ridiculous. It wouldn't work that fast, and it would... Really?
Trust me.
Well, all right. I'll either trust you or call your bluff, as the case may be. I just take a little sip of this, so tell the truth?
Automatically.
Why not something right now? That's just plain water.
That's the truth.
You saw me standing alone. Thank you very much.
We used to say kerosene and it got a bigger laugh.
Oh, you know what? I forgot that.
I know you did, yeah.
Well, it's been Joe and I haven't done that routine for about 6 months. Basically, I blew it. I'm sorry.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, well, anyway, they're nice people. They laughed anyway. Shows how much they know. But, you know, this next gentleman, we've already heard his name. It's no longer a surprise that Milton Berle is with us. He has written with Haskell Frankel an autobiography. Now, it's very unusual because this is basically the biography of Milton's auto, back in the days when he was with the Jewish people. No, all seriousness aside, it's a fascinating story. It's funny, it's sad, it's touching, and it's true. And one of the incidents related here is that Milton Berle really used to be my babysitter. That's by no means his only claim to distinction early in his career, but my mother was in vaudeville. She did comedy, too, and we'll get into the details of that. But he really was, at one point, my babysitter back in the old days. He writes songs, and he has acted in films and Broadway, and he's broken records at the Palace Theater. There's nothing much he has not done in the way of comedy. Let's welcome Mr. Milton Berle, Mr. Tuesday Night. Here he is, Uncle Milty. Now, it's interesting, Milton, that you would immediately take charge, and I don't criticize that. I think it's wonderful.
What? What do you think is wonderful?
I mean, you went like this. It's good that you take charge.
Did you announce me as Mr. Tuesday Night?
Tuesday Night, yes.
That's strange. That's what my wife still calls me.
But it is true. Milton is one of those comedians who is more than a comedian. He can produce a show, he can write it, he can direct it. And if they want really authenticity in comedy, they call Milton because he is a stickler for comedy authenticity. If they want that, they call him in, and he stickles. Now, next guest, ladies and gentlemen, is Billy Crystal. Billy is one of the younger generation of comedians. Not compared to Emmanuel Lewis, perhaps, but he's certainly younger than George Burns or Lucille Ball or some others I might mention.
Just don't mention my name, that's all.
I didn't mention your name. In a book I did a couple of years ago called Funny People, I included a chapter on Billy, and in introducing him now, I can only repeat my earlier observation that he is funny in a fresh, inventive, and really quite creative way. I hope, by the way, that you will get to see his marvelous cable comedy special, because it's a true tour de force, pièce de résistance, a coup d'état, a coup Saint-Jacques, a fleur de lis. Somebody stop me before my mouth kills again. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, Billy Crystal, here he is.
Hold it.
Yes? What were you saying, Milton?
What?
You were saying?
I didn't hear you.
That's all right. Leave it that way.
No,
Anyway.
What did you say, Steve?
No, I just said, what were you saying something?
I was saying something to him that I love you. That's what I was saying. No, I mean you've been more than a friend to me.
What have I been?
You're a total stranger.
All right. The next gentleman is a graduate of my favorite school of comedy. I happen to think that Sid Caesar is the premier sketch comedian. There are many different ways. Milton Berle is the champ of what he does. Don Rickles does his thing great. Joe Baker. Anyway, it's shock laugh, and I'm shocked that you laughed at it. But the old Sid Caesar shows for a good 10 years were representative of the best of television sketch comedy. And Carl Reiner was Sid's right-hand man, was also a contributor to the writing of the show, the staging and direction as well. And Carl now is a distinguished book writer and motion picture director. He directed, did you know that Carl Reiner directed Oh God? See, you didn't know that.
Did you mention my name?
No, come on. Meaning no respect. But anyway, Carl really is one of the best comedy directors in the... Why should I go on talking about? Let's get him out here. Mr. Carl Reiner.
Yes, yes.
Get back. Hi, Carl.
Can we wait for you to sit?
No, it doesn't matter.
I see.
Don't stand on protocol. Don't stand on the rug either. Don't stand on a...
I heard you when you... Let them laugh, don't you, please.
No, I need every laugh I can get, but go ahead, Milton.
I heard you announce before you announced me that I was your babysitter, and that's the truth.
Yes.
That's the truth, and he was my wedder.
No. That's ridiculous. No, my mother, her professional name was Belle Montrose, and you and my mother were on the same bill. Well, I don't remember the story. I was 2 years old, but you do. What happened?
Well, this is the truth. His mother was Belle Montrose, and she did a single act, and she was funny. Oh, boy. Her material, if you'd like to see it, I have it in a file. And she was absolutely hilarious, and he was only about, what, 3 years old? And he was in a carriage, and I was on the bill with him at the Colonial Theater in Akron, Ohio. I don't know how long ago, but I know how old he is, but me...
I don't know why you look at Billy Crystal. He wouldn't even remember Akron, Ohio. Much less...
Well, I want to ask Billy, how old are you?
I'm 36.
36. I got ties older than you. So anyway, Steve's mom was on the show, and he was in the carriage. Right? So she said to me, Mandel, she said, Milton, sorry, that's my maiden name. She said, would you do me a favor, little boy, young boy, would you take care of my little baby? Mm-hmm. And that is the truth, ladies and gentlemen. And his mother went on, and every show, I took care of little Stevie Allen. And I want to tell you, some fun, huh? Some fun.
Now, I've noticed right away a pattern of responses emerging here. Billy Crystal, cheerful, young, innocent that he is laughing at everything that has a scrap of the funny to it. Carl Reiner, on the other hand, I'm sure is savoring the humor even more richly, perhaps on a deeper level, writer and director and all that you are. But you have not actually laughed. Some comedians, we've discussed on earlier shows of this series, laugh hysterically. I'm notorious. I laugh too much. I laugh at straight lines. Sometimes I louse up a guy's act, I laugh so much, and it's all sincere. Other comedians, like Jack Benny, hardly ever laughed except at George Burns. But if Jack loved a joke, he would go, funny, that's funny. A lot of comedians rap on the table and say that something is funny. How about you? Are you a laugher?
Well, I'm a laugher when I'm needed. See, no, it's absolutely true. When professionals are working and the audience is not laughing, I will help out. Right now, I didn't have to help Milton out.
True.
The audience was doing their work. But if there was quiet, I would help. But I would not be lying. I would be helping by saying, this is funny. I know it's funny. I knew he was going to say the tie joke, and I think it's funny.
Yeah.
Just 1 minute. Now, please, hold the bell. You knew I was going to say the tie joke. Yes. I wish I could answer you.
Because I thought that was funny.
Now, you see, the audience laughed hysterically at what Milton said, because it was a timing laugh.
Right,
he didn't say anything, but they laughed at his timing.
Also, he did something very honest. He admitted it showed a human quality there, too, and did it funny.
Sure.
But I do laugh, and I have laughed so hard. There are 2 times I remember hearing laughter. Once was in a picture called A Big Deal on Madonna Street, when a man busted through the wall. I won't describe the scene, but it was the single funniest joke I'd ever seen in a movie. And and another time when I saw 10 from your show of shows, and I saw something that I'd never seen before, which is the takeoff on This Is Your Life.
Yes.
And I heard at both of those performances, I heard a woman laughing, a screaming woman laughing.
In the audience, you mean?
That woman was me.
Really?
I heard a laugh coming out of me I'd never heard before. And I remembered it because when that's the same one who laughed at Big Deal on Madonna Street twice. I do laugh a lot at...
when something really gets you.
Yes, I really go. You're a giggler. You giggle.
I remember my first laugh.
Your first laugh?
The first really big one.
When they laughed at you?
At
something you were laughing at?
Yeah, it was, you did a takeoff of The King and I.
Oh, it's
and Sid played...
I did The Queen and I. Isn't that funny?
I knew you were going to say that.
You did.
And Sid was walking as Yul Brynner barefooted. And I remember I was sitting there, I was 6, 7, 8 years old, and he suddenly screamed and grabbed his bare foot and went, "Who's smoking in the palace?" Yes. Am I right? And I broke up. I thought that was the funniest thing I'd ever seen.
You laughed at a pain joke.
Yeah. Well, comedy
pain is funny.
Yes, it is.
Especially the way many comedians can take a little thing like stepping on something sharp and make you laugh hysterically for 3 and 4 minutes.
Chaplin. That was
Chaplin
slipping on a banana peel.
Yeah.
Falling down. As long as it doesn't happen to you.
Yes.
It's funny.
Tell them what I mean by that, Carl.
Well, Mel Brooks, the 2,000-year-old man, said it very succinctly. He says, the difference between comedy and tragedy, I asked him what's the difference, and he said, comedy. He says, comedy is if a man will walk along a street and fall down an open manhole and die. That's comedy.
That's comedy.
Tragedy is if I'll cut my finger with a paper. A little paper cut, yes. That's tragedy. Yes.
That's brilliant.
Yes.
Brilliant. We mentioned an incident from Billy Crystal's childhood. Billy, how old were you when you realized that you were a little funnier than the other kids that you knew? Seriously.
5 or 6. I remember. I mean, show of shows, Milton, you.
What date?
Well, that's what you were laughing at, but I mean, when you began to get laughs yourself.
Yeah, what started from that, I would use their things.
You'd steal from me? Now, there is the switch.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Bill.
And I'd get up. You were sitting there like this before, and I was thinking this was the family. Would sit there after a big meal, and relatives after a big meal would go, "Ay." And I would get up on a coffee table at 5 or 6 and do them. I would imitate them, and they would give me coins, and I'd put each coin on my head.
Stick them to your head?
Stick them to my head, because you sweat a little bit. So when my head was filled up with coins, I was off.
Get to keep the money?
Get to keep the money. I still have it.
I always heard you had a big head. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen,
5 or 6 years old.
Yeah.
That's funny. I was through when I was 3.
We have our research people, and we have thousands of them, has tracked down, Billy, a little clip showing you when you were 5 years old. They must have gotten in touch with your family, because it's like in the home movie department. But I, for one, and T for two, would be fascinated to see this clip. Shows little Billy Crystal.
The first act that I did was I used to try and tap dance, because my dad was a producer of jazz concerts, and I'd be out on stage with Eddie Condon and Saul Yeager, who you know, and all of these great guys.
Jazz players.
And I would get up and tap dance, but I could only work the right leg. We were poor. I only took lessons for the right leg. But seriously, and so this, I think, if this is the clip, it's at my Aunt Marcia's wedding, and I'm doing a one-legged tap dance.
That's the Aunt Marcia wedding
Is that
clip.
what it is?
Let's take a look at it and see.
This
Billy
is your...
Crystal.
Oh, my. Now watch the... Where's the leg? Where's the leg? There it is. And then I also did Ed Sullivan. Now, these are silent, so I would do Ed Sullivan as everybody did. Look, there it is. Boy, I'm working hard here. And there's that. Now I do Ed. Where is it?
Is that your father?
No, this is Denny Dinifer. That was a band leader. I remember his name.
I
There's Ed.
think it's a man in drag.
There's Ed.
Oh, there's Ed.
That's it.
That's cute.
That was it.
That's funny.
Still doing the same thing.
It's still part of the Sullivan, right?
Yeah.
You're still a cute little person.
I was cute.
Yeah.
That was a suit we took off a Jerry Mahoney doll.
Carl, how old were you? And again, very seriously, be as funny as you wanted answering, but I want the real information. When you first realized you were kind of funny.
I guess when I was in high school, or even before that, I would do angular things. I would make funny moves and faces. I could always make faces, yes.
Ah, you were physical.
My first act actually was a contortionist. I was able... Everybody had to do something for the Christmas pageant, and I didn't know what to do. I sang off key, which was never acceptable as comedy. I mean, as real... And I used to put this leg...
Could you do it now?
No. Oh, I could have, but that would be the end of my life. I used to put this leg behind, both legs behind my head and walk around on my hands. Then I would put one leg up and walk on my... with one leg, just running around.
And from this you got laughs?
Yes. They thought it was funny because it didn't look like a regular person. I made faces when I did that, too.
I got to tell you a story about Vaudeville, about you being a contortionist.
Contortion.
I don't know if you... This is an anecdote. This is a true story. We used to have a fella in Vaudeville. You wouldn't remember. Possibly you would. This stout Monty Python. And... I'm kidding. That feels good. Can I do that again, please? Anyway, we had an act in Vaudeville, a guy by the name of, was German, Detzo Ritter. Detzo Ritter. He was German, Detzo Ritter, and he had ears that came out there, and I'm sorry to say this, but he didn't have hair either, and he used to be dressed up like a strong man. And he was a contortionist.
What did he do?
I'll tell you what he did. They put a mat out on the stage, and he was billed, he always wanted his billing, Detzo Ritter, the man who wrestles with himself.
He would pretend to be two people.
Absolutely. He'd pretend to be two people, and he'd take his hand way up here, put it here, go, that's, you know?
I could have stolen that.
I don't like people that do that. Anyway, he did that, right? And... it was funny, hilarious. Yeah. But he wanted his billing. Detzo Ritter, the man who wrestles with himself. Now begins the story. He's playing up in, he's going to open in a place called Elmira, New York, and he gets on a train at Grand Central Station on 42nd Street, and he sits in a coach car, but the next stop on New York Central is 125th Street. So at 125th Street, in come a lot of inmates, and with wardens with them. They're taking these inmates, this is on the level, to an asylum.
A mental asylum?
Yeah, mental asylum, a place called Mattawan. And they're sitting in the same car with Detzo Ritter. And Detzo Ritter is sitting there, and he's eating with his mom, his little lunch, he's eating. Now, Mattawan comes before Elmira, and the conductor says, Next stop, Mattawan. So the wardens, the keepers come around, they tap each inmate or mental patient. They say, all right, come on, gets up. All right, come on, gets up. Now they tap Detso Ritter. And he says, what are you doing? You crazy or something? He says, what do you want? He says, come on, out. Come on, out. We're getting off at Mattawan. Come on, out. And he thought he was one of the mental patients. He says, get your hands off me. Do you know who you're talking to? You're talking to Detso Ritter, the man who wrestles with himself. They threw a net over him.
That's a great story. That's a great story. You know what's wonderful? I didn't think it was going to be that great a story. It's a great story.
Thank you very much.
I'm very happy.
Thank you. For a straight man, that's very nice.
You know, this brings up an interesting point. There's no real thread to our conversation. We say whatever we think of. Straight men. Let's talk about that for just a second. When Harvey Korman was here in one of our other
7,461 and 1/4. You said we say whatever we want, didn't you?
That's true.
Okay.
That's true.
I felt like saying a number.
That's true. I've decided we're not going to do that anymore. That was the end of it right there.
Okay.
You'll say what I want from now on. We're jumping about a bit. Oh, come on. Milton just gave little Billy Crystal a sweet little peck on the cheek. All right, let's get back to little Billy Crystal here. Not all that little, but he is Billy Crystal. He's a very funny gentleman. Again, I must tell you, I saw the video cassette of your comedy special, cable special, and you are funny in many new, wild ways. Have you ever seen his whole act, Milton, his whole concert?
Was it funny?
It's hysterical. No, he does a million dialects and accents. You do little children. You do disembodied spirits. You do... you have a wild imagination.
Yes. Yes, I do, Steve.
Yeah. Would you do us the great honor of availing yourself? I mean, want to jump up and do a little something for the folks?
I should preface here. I have prefaced this. This is, every performer has something that they love to do. I have not done this piece in a long time, but I like doing it, man. And it's a performance piece. I was always jealous of singers because they had a style. They always got the girl. And a lot of times they didn't sing real good, but they had style. And so I loved their moods. So I combined the two and made a comic who does his act like a singer, late night in a cabaret. We're just going to wing this.
Kind of a Las Vegas lounge type
Yes,
thing?
It's called the Mood Comic. So it's late at night in the Vegas kind of showroom. It's time for the Mood Comic.
All right.
Ooh, huh? Thank you. Ooh, thank you so much. I mean that. What the heck is that? Thank you. Thanks. Thank you. That's good. That's awful good. Get the car running, okay? Anyway, where you folks from? Good. I'm killing me. Anyway, we'd like to slow the humor down now. If I might. Lay a couple of mood jokes on you. Inflation got you folks down, huh? Sure it does. I mean, today, a bum came up to me on the street, and he said, "Hey, Billy." Thank you. And it's true. It's a true story. Speaking of my kids, my oldest is a little slow. Thinks an officer and a gentleman is a double feature. Huh? A double feature. I'm killing me. That's good. That's awful good. You about the guy? He was half black, half Japanese, did you? Sure you did. That's good. That's awful good. We'd like to pick up the pace slightly here with a little tribute Cole Porter's Night and Day. If you're Hebrew, it's day and night. They read from right. Anyway, can we get like Night and Day about da 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 in E flat? We'll pay for it. Okay, Night and Day by the late dead Cole Porter. Night and Day. Thank you. Thanks for remembering. You are the one. Only you. Son. I'd like to leave you with a couple of mood impressions. Ladies and gentlemen, One Stepbrother. Hup, 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 hup. Thank you. Fred Astaire putting out a cigarette. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, we gotta get going. I gotta get these clothes back to Mr. Rogers. But anyway, and I mean that, we'd just like to say on behalf of Terry and all the guys in this wacky, kooky kind of band, from the bottom of this heart, and Danny Thomas's, merely and simply, thank you so much. Thank you.
I haven't done that in 6 years.
I absolutely love that. I wonder...
I'll do it tomorrow.
Carl, does it strike you that brilliant as that is, and it is truly brilliant, there nevertheless probably are a few people around the country, maybe in small communities, who never have been to a Vegas lounge, who never see entertainers of that style, who think, what are they all laughing at? What's so funny about that? Don't you have to know about that world before you laugh at that?
I think everybody has seen a bad comic someplace, or a bad singer. Yes, as a matter of fact, it's more likely that they've seen bad singers out in the rest of the country. All those inns.
I saw a great singer a couple of months ago on Johnny Keeson. What's his name? Johnny Carson.
I'm not going to help you, Milton.
You don't need any help. I don't need any help, and your wife doesn't need any help.
No,
that's what you're talking about, good singers. I don't know if you know this. I want to talk about his wife.
Estelle, I remember.
His wife, Lena. His wife, Estelle, Reiner, started to sing these past few seasons. And I want to tell you, she's absolutely marvelous.
I've been in Georgia where she's a marvelous singer. I believe you digressed.
Yes,
I don't know.
I got a story.
All right. Oh, good. Yes, go ahead.
Talking about comics. This is an absolutely true story. Carl's son, Rob, who is my closest friend in the world.
Slow up.
We played on the same...
Okay, Carlson Rob.
Right, Rob and I have a softball team in a show business league out in the Valley. And it means a lot to us as we find that we're not running as fast lately. Right? So I was playing in Las Vegas. This was last summer. And we had a playoff game the next day, Saturday, against the Jackson 5 team. And it was a very important game. I got up at 8 o'clock in the morning after doing 2 shows the night before, got on a plane, unbeknownst to the hotel, flew from Vegas to L.A., and my friend Bruno Kirby, who's a great actor, played Clemenza in Godfather 2, and picks me up at the airport, drives me to the game. I changed my clothes into my uniform, my spikes, the whole thing. Bruno's got my clothes in his car. We play the game, boom, we lose. I got to get back to Vegas to do the first show. The last flight out of Burbank is at 3 p.m.
Wow.
And if you don't get back on time, there's a big guy who goes, Billy, the audience was here and you weren't. It's not the best thing to do, right? We finished the game. Bruno took off with all my stuff. My plane ticket, my clothes, everything. I'm stuck in a baseball uniform, and the name of the team is the Coney Island Whitefish. This is not the kind of, this is a terrible thing. Fortunately, my wife is at the game. She takes me to Burbank Airport. We're looking for Bruno. I'm running around in spike shoes on the hallway looking like a dog on a hardwood floor. I get to the gate. He's not there. We buy the last ticket, which was my original ticket anyway, because I didn't have it. I ran on the plane in a baseball uniform, spike shoes, a little scab here. I sit down like this, totally embarrassed with spike shoes on. We take off. The plane is full. And I was the last person on. We take off. We're flying, and I'm feeling so angry, and what's going to happen? The hand grabs me like this. He goes, Billy, got to ask you something. I look over. It's Jackie Gale. Jackie Gale is a great comedian and is a real Vegas-style, terrific comedian. I've never met the man before. Bill, I got to ask you something. What, Jackie? Why am I not opening for Frank in Vegas? Why the hell is Tom Dreesen doing this and I not? Why? Would you explain to me why? I'm totally ignoring the fact I'm in a baseball uniform in Spike too. What's going on? Vegas is it's not the same. It's not Atlantic City. You played there? I haven't played there. Why is he using? It's a stunt. I said, Jackie, I'd like to talk to you some more, but I'm in the middle of a game. He didn't get it. He goes, what do you mean? I go, this guy just hit the longest fly ball I've ever seen.
You know, it's remarkable how consistently funny stories or funny ad-libs or funny situations grow out of raw material that is essentially bad news, tragedy. You were in big trouble, and funniness came out of that. Milton, when we talk about embarrassments or being on the spot, what occurs to you from your 1,001 nights of funniness?
Quite a few. Moments. No, quite a few. One embarrassing moment, I nearly got killed. I was working in Jamaica, Long Island, at the Lowe's Valencia Theater, and they had the orchestra pit come up, the rising orchestra, like they had Paramount, yes. And they did the overture, and they took the pit down, and they should have left a little thing, one ledge of the orchestra, a stand for me to come out on. And I opened the show, and they said, ladies and gentlemen, here he is, Milton Berle. And I come out opening show, and I came out through the drop, through the Traveler. I said, hello, and I went right down in a pit.
Did you hurt yourself?
20 feet.
Wow.
I laid there with blood, bleeding. And the orchestra conductor bends over and says to me, shall I play another introduction?
I had almost the exact same thing happen.
Really?
Falling off. But I was doing the musical Cabaret. This was 2 summers ago in Stock. And the opening of the show, I played the MC. And the show, totally black, and boom, the MC opens the show and he walks out, takes a big bow right at center stage, and then sings Willkommen, the opening song. You can't see the edge of the stage, and usually they tape it with Day-Globe tape so you can see the edge of the stage.
People in audiences often wonder, what do you mean you can't see? It's because there are bright spotlights in your eyes and everything else is blacked out.
Yeah, and this was is one light, and you feel like a frog on the highway at night. This feeling, that thing. So I walk out, and can I get to the edge of this?
Sure.
All right. I walk out, it's totally black, and the conductor is right here, like this. Okay? I walk out, I'm supposed to take a big bow, and I hit the edge and go right over like this, but his hand comes up like this, catches my hand, goes through this. They thought it was a part of the show, and they thought it was the funniest thing they'd ever seen.
Oh, the things that happen in vaudeville and live shows over, Mario.
I wonder if there's ever a comedian who's been in the business for more than 5 years who has not fallen into an orchestra pit. I did that in Kansas City once at the Starlight Theater. It's a big place like the Hollywood Bowl. Same situation. They had a little little platform with what I call Judy Garland lights, the little dim spotlights that make it look like vaudeville or showbiz. And at a certain point, I had to sing a very sad song each night, and just the piano and myself for a few bars. And I would peek at one of these lights out of the corner of my eye as I sang, and then walk out. And one night I thought this row was this row, and I walked out into space. I didn't lay there long. I didn't, stay there long. I went down. It's like walking into a swimming pool with no water in it. It was a scary feeling. Yeah, for the next 2 years, I had to have help putting on my overcoat. Literally, it banged up my left arm.
Things that happen. You said at the beginning where I was babysitting for you in Akron, Ohio, and it's just mindful right now. This is a non sequitur, but I got to tell a true show business story. In Cleveland, Ohio, I was appearing in Cleveland, Ohio, as they attached in my mind, and I appeared there. This is quite a few years. It's about years ago, and I was playing in a nightclub, but Jascha Heifetz, the great violinist, one of the greatest in the whole world, was making a personal appearance and doing a concert for a one-night performance at this fantastic auditorium. And this was in Cleveland in the height of the blizzard, the biggest blizzard they ever had in Cleveland. You couldn't, couldn't see the box office. It was 15 feet above the box office. A blizzard, nobody on the streets.
Gotcha.
It was terrible.
It was snowing.
Yes, sir, it was snowing. And as actors usually do, all of us, when we're playing personal appearances, we look through the curtain to see how many people are out in the audience. Well, this sat 5,000 people. And he looked out in the audience, Heifetz. Before the show looked out, there must have been about 140 people scattered all over. So he said to the stage manager, would you do me a favor? Would you hold the show up about 15 minutes? And the stage manager said, yes, Mr. Heifetz, you're the world's greatest violinist. Do anything you want. They held up 15 minutes. 15 minutes later, he looked through the light, through the curtain. There's about 20 more people. Then about 152 people scattered over this 4,000 or 5,000 seater. He said, would you hold it up another 15 minutes? The stage manager said, yes. Looked through the third time, maybe 20 more. So I had about 180 people scattered all over this place. Finally, Yasha Heifetz went on at 5 after 9. He should have gone on at 8:30.
Yeah.
And he walks out in his street clothes. And he says to the audience, ladies and gentlemen, I must apologize. There will be no performance tonight. And I guess you know the reason why. And anyway, your money will be refunded. Just then a guy in the back held his hand up and he yelled. He says, Mr. Heifetz, I traveled all the way from Dayton to be here tonight. At least sing one song. That's embarrassing to Heifetz.
You know, I'm sure most fans of Milton Berle's realize that if we had a 9-hour program, Milton all by himself could go on telling endless stories from his wealth of experience. And I think a good way to dramatize that, Milton, would be to show a little bit of film. Now, Billy, we saw him being funny at the age of 5. You also were funny at the age of 5, and professionally.
Did he steal my dance?
No, he didn't do that. But we have just a little bit of film, which we can roll now as I speak. It's with the great comedian Charlie Chaplin.
There he is.
In a film called, Milton is the Little Boy.
You know who that is with me?
Who's that?
I'm with them. It's Charlie Chaplin and Marie Dressler.
That's Marie Dressler?
Yes.
That I never knew.
Yes. That's back in 1921 with a little girl by the name of Elizabeth Kennedy. And I did a dramatic act.
Yeah, there you are.
How old are you here?
There I was singing, look at that, we were doing a Buzz Berkeley then. That's back in 1929.
You look about 19 or 20,
That's
right?
a picture called Poppin' the Cork. Oh, boy. I wrote the score.
Yes.
It's the worst score you ever heard.
Well, we've been talking about people who were successfully and commercially funny when they were very young. Right now, a young man who started out to be a concert pianist, but more and more comedy crept into his work. He's also had great success writing funny songs in recent years, such as I Need Your Help, Barry Manilow, and What Makes Bobby Short. Welcome him right now, Mr. Dale Gonyea.
Yeah.
You ask me if I love you. You ask me every day. The answer seems so obvious, but the words get in the way. You say I changed the subject. I'm not trying to stall. Do I love you? Let me say once and for all. Is the Pope Polish? Does Chucky Love die? Do chimpanzees have lips? Does Brishnikov have legs? Is Smokey a bear? Does Gladys Knight have pips? Does Billy Carter like Schlitz? Did Coco Chanel come from France? Is Pasadena the pits? Does Brooke Shields wear tight pants? Do I love you? Do I love you? Does Woody Allen go to a shrink? Do I love you? Do I love you? The answer is yes, I think. Does Nancy like red china? Does the cannibal like red meat? Was someone in the kitchen with Dinah? Does Joe Namath have athlete's feet? Do I love you? Do I love you? Is a mountain climber at the end of his rope? Do I love you? Do I love you? The answer is yes, I hope. Do I love you? Do I love you? Does Lassie go bow wow? Do I love you? Do I love you? The answer is yes. For now. Thank you, I was in, thank you. Eat your heart out, Slim Whitman. I was in D.C. last year and got a call from the big man in the White House, and he asked me to write this song for him, and you're going to be hearing a lot of it. He was a movie actor on the screen, but acting jobs were few and far between. He'd made a tiny fortune in the flicks, and so he tried his hand at politics. He won the race and no one thought he could. Now Uncle Sam is going Hollywood. He had the presidency in the bag. Let's do the Ronnie Reagan rag. The Ronnie Reagan rag. Day and night. Lean to the left. No! Lean to the right. Yes! Let's hope his popularity is lasting. He got his cabinet from Central Casting. Ronnie Reagan rag. To and fro. See him on the Late Late Show. I know you're proud of him, but try not to brag. Just do the Ronnie Reagan rag. Nixon was tricky, Gerald Ford was a klutz. Carter was sweet, but didn't have any guts. It was time for somebody new. Let's see what Ronnie can do. The Ronnie Reagan rag, day and night. Lean to the left, no, lean to the right, yes. Give him a simple life, no nothing fancy. Two ordinary people, Ron and Nancy. Ronnie Reagan rag, to and fro. See him on the Late Late Show. He used to be the president of SAG. Those movie reruns could become a drag. His son likes ballet, but he's not afraid to talk about it. Ronnie Reagan rag.
Yeah. We might as well put to you the formula question that we've gotten so many answers from and various guests over the last few weeks. Yes. How old were you when you first realized you were a little funnier than the rest of the gang?
Well, it was an accident because I was doing a concert.
Piano concert?
Piano concert, and I had the orchestra behind me.
You were how old?
I was in high school, 9th grade. And the piano started to move on wheels. So I had to catch up to it. And it would keep going. And eventually, before I got off stage, I realized I was a comedian. I enjoyed getting the laughs, and I didn't like the 5 hours in the practice room, the solitude.
Got hooked on that warm laughter right away. You know, it's an interesting point. And Milton, I'd like to get your comment on this. If you name, 50 or 100 comedians, the number doesn't matter, you find that the majority of them did not get into show business as comedians. Some did rope tricks, some were magicians, some were jugglers, some were saxophone players, some were tap dancers, some were concert pianists, and little by little the funniness took over.
Right.
Is that as true today as it was? It certainly was true 30 years ago.
Well, it was true with Fred Allen, who started out as Fred Sullivan, as a juggler.
Yeah.
But you asked
W.C. Fields, Will Rogers.
I think more and more people, tell me if I'm wrong, I think more and more people are starting out to try to become comedians nowadays than ever before.
But I also see more and more what we call prop comics than I've ever seen. The last few years, it seems everybody's
jugglers and
pulling stuff out. Everyone can do a lot of things.
Slapstick and all that stuff.
Gallagher.
I can't stand that dressing like women, you know.
I just think that's because there are so many more new comics coming up that sometimes some of us need to think of something else. I mean, in my case, I didn't have to think of it because it was organic.
Music was natural, yeah.
But if you can think of something that's a little different than just standing up and telling a joke.
We also have more and more places to play lately.
The comedy clubs, yeah.
All over the country. There's comedy stores or whatever they call them in each city, and it's terrific to go.
May I interrupt here?
You did. Whenever I come another city, I find. Stop me if you've heard this.
Are you through?
No. I find that there are little comedy clubs.
Wait till next year. You'll be through.
Now, I wish I should have a punchline now. But there aren't.
You want one? I'll give you
in
one.
every city, there's a place, and there are lines around the block.
Well,
Everybody's
I was going to
I wanna make-
contradict you.
Okay,
Well, I was going to
go
contradict
ahead.
them.
You contradict, and I'll make a sociological point.
Yes,
Now, I say, you say there are a lot of places to play. You're talking about comedy stores, rising stars. There aren't any more nightclubs to appear in. There is no place today, there isn't any more vaudeville. Like if the folks that are watching the show now can remember the Orpheum Circuit, the Lowe's Circuit, and all your big heavyweights that are here still with us, and possibly some of them are gone, their expertise, see if you agree with me this, Carl, came from flopping. And they had a chance to flop. They had a town to flop in.
Well, the kids can flop in these comedy clubs.
Yeah, wait, yes, no, they don't always. They got I know they do, but they have a lot of rooters there. We did not have rooters in Winnipeg. They didn't know who the hell Milton Berle was. And if the joke was lousy, and it died, and it did die, my mother came backstage and said, the joke is out. But we had a chance to fix and really fix our act up, and we could travel for 10 years with the same act.
And now a rejoinder for the prosecution.
No, I
yes,
don't.
Carl.
All I said, there's no place to flop in.
No, and I
That we heard.
and I do think there are places to flop in because I found them. No, no, but there are these comedy clubs where they have these nights, non-professional nights. I don't know what they call them.
Beginners nights.
Beginners nights. Where anybody can get up for 5 minutes and they hit a bell when you're off. But I was saying, why the proliferation of comedians? Why do we have so many comedians? And I think, Doctor, it's because we need commentators. And comedians are that. And the world has really gone crazy. I mean, they've always said, I know the world is crazy. Ernie Youngman has been saying it for years. But I think we're pretty close to it now. Now we have, for the first time in the history of our life, we have the possibility of blowing ourselves up and destroying the world. And we need somebody saying, hey, and comedians do that. They don't always talk about political things, but they talk about the madness that's in the world.
The truth.
And more comedians, as we get crazier, more and more comedians will come about and tell us we're crazy.
But the best advice I was ever given, which is by one of my managers, Jack Rollins, who was one of the great managers in comedy, said to me when I first started, and I was working what we call safe. I wasn't taking any chances, and he called me aside, and I was doing great, but it was not, and he said to me, don't be afraid to bomb. And I went, why? And he said, because it'll be more honest.
Yeah.
And it's truth. And that's...
Try wild things.
Yeah, try, experiment, be yourself, and go out there. They'll be with you. They'll find you.
The way the world is going today, Carl is right, because there's so much going on in the world today, which reminds me, I thought of something. I just figured out a way of how to stop the war in Afghanistan.
How do you do that?
Put it on NBC. It'll be over in 4 weeks.
Dale, you're one who works in a lot of the small clubs. Can you relate to what the guys were just saying?
Well, I think that there are very few people that are political comedians now. I mean,
no new Mort
people are
Salt's
trying.
coming along.
People are, I think, are trying to more like escapist things to try to get you to forget all of the crazy things that are going on, instead of commenting on it, don't you think?
Plus, when you do current events, it's gone. I mean, you can write and write and write, but it's gone, and that maybe the next day.
Right.
Yeah, it's a good joke for 3 weeks.
And it's gone. So
In 20 years,
think
it
you're right.
repeats.
Well, Bob Hope does his political monologue.
But he has to get a new monologue every time.
Yeah, but he does. But you know when he does it?
Because he has 400 writers. I'm serious. In effect. That's how he does it. I'm not putting him down. I wish I could afford to hire him.
No, well, there's hope for you, too. But what I was going to say, he does his monologue on another show, not on... Yeah. He has done the show already. The last thing he tapes is his monologue the night before he does his show.
So it'll be timely.
The topical value can still stay.
He has used the Carson audience.
Yes, he has.
Once in a while.
Yeah. You know, again, we've mentioned this on some of the other shows. It's fascinating how many ways there are to be funny. Nobody knows how many because 14 are being introduced all the time. Faces, shtick, funny ties, whatever, jokes, sketches, all kinds of ways, funny piano playing. Carl, I'll never forget something you did on one of my shows about 20 years ago, and I wish I were a rich sultan with all the money in the world. I would hire you. Whatever your price, I would meet it. And what would you have to do for it? You would just have to hang around my house all day and talk Shakespearean double talk to me.
Oh, well, see, that came from a... It's the category is embarrassing moments. I never fell into the pit, but I fell into my own mouth once.
Oh.
Well, I was a young actor, and that's interesting. He had a piano moving on him when he became a comedian. I was a young actor, and I was touring with a Shakespearean touring company.
Serious actor.
Serious actor. I was doing 4 shows: Hamlet. I was doing Claudius and Hamlet. I was doing Antipholus of Ephesus and the Comedy of Errors, Orlando and As You Like It, and The Taming of the Shrew. I played the Tailor and Lucentio, a double part. Now, we came to Gadsden, Alabama. We playing different shows in each college or high school town, and Hamlet was 3 weeks hence. We weren't going to do Hamlet for 3 weeks. I had not learned the lines yet. I had been studying Hamlet for about 4 or 5 days, but because we had 3 weeks to learn it, and I was playing Claudius. And somebody said, we can't do The Taming of the Shrew tomorrow in Opelika or Gadsden because we did it last year. We've got to do Hamlet. So we got to get up in Hamlet. Now, the company had done Hamlet. I was the new kid, the 18-year-old Claudius, the father. So I stayed up all night studying my lines. To this day, I have these nightmares. I dream that I'm looking for the stage manager's book.
All actors have those nightmares. Yeah.
And I stayed up all night, walked around the square in town and went through where the light was and learned the line, closed the book, and walked to the next line. Mm-hmm. Now, I had the line sitting on very casually on the top of my head, so they sort of would slip down and come out of my mouth. I got through about the first 2 or 3 acts. Now, in these college towns, the kids would read, we'd tell them what the cuts were. So they would know the cuts. Hamlet is 5 hours. It was a 2-hour Hamlet we were doing. Yeah. So they would go cut scene 2, scene 7, page, and they'd know the cuts. Now, I have to, should I get up and do this?
Yeah, here. Okay. Right here's fine. You have your own mic.
Well, at this point, I ran off stage and saw my lines, read the lines, and ran back on stage, and I remember just the first line. Laertes is waiting in the wings to make an entrance. He won't make an entrance till he gets his cue, which is the line that brings him out. But I had a speech this long, and all I could remember was this much of it. And I am not being funny. I stood there, and I remember the first line. I said, "Oh, Gertrude, Gertrude, when sorrows come, they come not single spies, but in battalions. The people muddied in their thoughts." My mind went at that moment. That's as far as I went.
Wow.
And now I wanted to bring him on, so I knew I had to say something, so I started to double talk, which I didn't know I could do at the time.
In Shakespeare?
In Shakespeare.
Yeah.
I said, the people muddied in their thoughts, that the very falls of fame that came upon the very coals, that die with the very knolls of fame that have upon this thing, that I, to the very knolls of fame that came to fall, and I, thinking that I discovered, I keep looking to the side, that I, the very fall of fame, does take the volley home, and flip off the penny's fall, and step off the fray, if I say to the Maize, well, sir, thou not come up to the pay, the vines come, the veils fall, the very cause of fame doth perish in the fall, labors come off all, with thy cancer, and finally, he got the idea I was hysterical, and he came out. I kept doing this to him. And this I didn't do to you. That was the basis of it. That was an absolute nightmare. 10 years later, I was doing Roberta in Texas, and Mary Hunter was a director.
The musical.
The musical. I was doing the Bob Hope part in Roberta. And in between this show and the next show coming on, we all met together, and we started talking Shakespeare. And I told this story. And Mary Hunter, a very fine director, said, can you ad-lib anything in Shakespeare? I said, well, I don't know. Give me what scene? And every scene has a tone. And I could do almost a love scene, the balcony scene.
Yeah, the classic balcony scene.
But soft, what fault to the very halls of the cane, that thou in thy very moles upon a tear in thy eye, of pain of thy falls, that thou hast a very fault of pain. But I see in thy very frame that the visage of the fall, if I could pluck the thing and tear it to the very coals, and set to my heart to beat the very poems, thy tear in thy eye and thy hair would fall, that I, with never such a fault, doth lift to thy very paw, thy teeth would frame, and then thou canst to me, like all men say, thou lovest thee. Honey, that made sense to me.
Made sense to Joe Baker.
I laugh at that because the picture that they showed before, Steve showed before with the little girl, Elizabeth Kennedy and myself,
Yes.
we did a dramatic act in 1921. And we did the balcony scene
Really?
from Romeo and Juliet. And the way he just did it makes no sense because I'll tell you the real words.
You still remember the real word? Milton Berle as Romeo.
He jests at scars that never felt a wound. But soft, what light through yonder window breaks? It is the east, and Juliet is the sun. Arise, fair sun, and kill the envious moon, who's already sick and pale with grief, that thou, her maid, art far more fair than she. Be not her maid, since she is envious. Her vestal livery is but sick and green, and none but fools do wear it. Cast it off! Oh, 'tis my lady, oh, 'tis my love. Oh, that she knew she were her, but that you were.
I whispered that into my wife's ear when we met in the summer resort, and she married me for that. She thought I had class. That's all the class I had.
I did the same thing, and my first wife divorced me.
And on that note of high culture, we conclude.
That's never been done as a duet before.
No, I loved it. I loved it.
You've seen a first here, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes.
Berle and Reiner doing Romeo.
Gentlemen, there's a cliche which is appropriate at the moment. I don't know where the time is going. That's how it always goes. And I honestly don't. It felt like about 23 minutes, but it's been 60. And we thank our distinguished comedy visitors, Dale Gonyea.
Wait a second. He's not distinguished.
He will be as soon as the show's over.
He's distinguished.
Thank you, Dale. And Carl Reiner. Thank you, Carl. Milton Berle. Great. Billy Preston. Joe Baker. Thanks to all of you. And you for joining us here at the Comedy Room.
I was wondering if you'd mind.
That's good.
Thank you.